Hey there, freaking awesome people. Winnie here from Mind Now, and welcome back to Inspirational Mind, where we break down channels, interview people to gain their perspective on how you can master your mind to gain self confidence and self esteem, especially as an introvert. But hey, if you're an extrovert, don't shy away because the world needs you. And today we have a special guest. It is Alex from Conscious Personal Growth. I am so excited that he's here today. How are you doing, brother?
Hey Winnie, good to be here.
Awesome, awesome. So let's just get right to it, man. As you know, my channel is all about self confidence. So, my question to you is how do you gain self confidence and belief in yourself?
Well, it's a massive question. It is a massive, massive question. But that doesn't mean we can't touch on a few kind of foundational things. But when it comes to confidence, there's so many intersecting elements that build up together to lead to progressively even more and more confidence. And of course, it depends on what you actually want to be confident in. So I'm guessing, say, for example, with someone like you and your channel, the question may be more around personal interactions or relationships, but obviously it could be to do with skills like confidence in playing an instrument or confidence in doing anything in life, really, any kind of skill. So social interactions are also skills. But what specifically for you do you want to touch on when it comes to confidence? Is it are we kind of like looking more at people rather than like
Yes.
skills in particular? Yeah,
Yes.
because if I was working with like a coaching client, I think the first thing I would ask if they asked me the same question is like confidence in what exactly? Because obviously there are kind of like two basic elements to confidence. It's the self-acceptance part, and then there's the competence part, because obviously there are certain things in life that you don't necessarily want to be confident in. For example, I don't it's not a good idea for me to be confident in playing the violin at the moment because I know I have no skills in playing the violin. So for me to be confident in that would be a silly idea. But I think when we talk about confidence, people are more thinking about it's like a general feeling that they want. You know, when they enter social interactions, they don't want to be getting all anxious. They don't want to be in their head. They want to be able to be who they are, or basically get positive reactions from the other person, whether it be having a positive interaction in a dating situation, having a positive interaction in a business situation or public speaking event or making friends. You want a feeling that you can go in there and make some kind of impact. And a lot of that, to be honest, starts with self acceptance. And when I mean self acceptance, I mean acceptance for the human aspect of you. So, acceptance for where you are right now, your current life situation, your current personality and behaviors, your current skills. Because if we don't like who we are and we don't accept who we are, then there's always going to be an incongruence between how we're acting and how we really feel on the inside. A lot of confidence comes to people when they start to love themselves and like themselves. Now, that doesn't mean that you should just look at yourself and say, well, I'm completely fine the way I am in terms of like I've learned all the skills I want to learn and I've improved my personality as much as I want to. Of course, there's things that you can work on there. There's ways that you can become more skilled in interaction, or like you can work on your body. You can do all of these different things, and we can touch on that. There's the whole doing aspect to confidence, gaining skills, gaining um, like knowledge about social dynamics and stuff like that. But the foundational aspect really starts with internally, not necessarily externally. There's all the things you can want to change, but internally, accepting who you are and starting to become okay with who you are, where you are, your current life situation, like I say, your personality and behaviors. Because when you start to accept who you are, it takes you more into the present moment. Starts to take you out of your head and into where you are right now. accepted who you are in your life situation, you're going to spend a lot of time thinking about your faults, thinking about what could potentially go wrong, thinking about the past, thinking about people that might be to blame for where you are, thinking about, blaming others, blaming yourself. All of these kinds of things lead to you to being trapped in your head and not actually in the present moment. And acceptance starts to bring you closer into the present moment. And then from there, you can then start to do things. You can then decide if there's certain things that you want to do in order to become more competent. So that's the second idea, that competence leads to confidence. And that could be through anything. If it's acing an interview, it's looking at some of the skills and some of the tips and tricks to ace interviews. If it's meeting someone on a date and creating a nice situation for the both of you so you can have a nice time, it might be learning some skills around that, how to keep conversation going, like just reminders really to create a fun situation for the both of you to maybe do different things. There's going to be different things that will help you feel more confident in that kind of situation. If it's friendship interactions, you can learn things about, you can go to different channels and you can learn things to do with social dynamics and what makes people respond positively. For example, sharing pieces of information about yourself, trying to bring joy to the situation, talking about lots of different kinds of things and keeping the conversation flowing and interesting. You can learn to do all of those things. So the same applies to any kind of skill. Like I'm not confident that I can play the violin now, but when I become more competent, I will become more confident. So then I guess the question then arises, well, if I'm not competent at certain things, how can I be confident now? And well, the first place that starts is with the acceptance of your life situation and who you are. And then just knowing that you can be confident, that you will learn, that you will grow, that you will learn from your past mistakes, that you can, once a foundation of self-acceptance comes in, do particular things. If I'm going to learn to play the piano or violin, I might not necessarily be confident now, but through regular practice, through learning, through growing, and through looking at my mistakes and seeing where I can improve, my competence builds and therefore my confidence builds. So to summarize, it's really 2 or 3 main aspects: the acceptance, the competence, and then the confidence, that base level confidence in just knowing that it's possible to learn, grow, and learn from your past mistakes.
Yeah, you broken it down very, very thoroughly, man. So thank you for that. What I actually wanted to know, which you already said and talked about, is the acceptance part, because you need to kind of accept yourself for who you are and be okay with who you are before you actually get confident in whatever area you want to build that in. But also what you said with competence, if you get good at something, you will naturally become confident with that as well. Now, I also want to touch on the topic of energy. When you have energy and you're positive, you are also more likely to like yourself. You have that, let's say it's like you are warming yourself up for a better day. Now, my question to you is, how do you get that energy and positivity?
I think what you're touching on there in terms of energy, by the sounds of it, is like the warming up you were saying, and that is something that I do, especially to do towards particular situations. For example, maybe a public speaking event or a video or an important interaction. Yes, all of the positive self-talk and, doing a few push-ups beforehand or having a cold shower or saying that I'm going to ace this and all this kind of stuff can really help, and I do it myself. But of course, there's so many different factors combining together that lead to energy and positivity. So, I mean, I really like what Brendan Burchard says, where he says, you don't have energy, you generate energy. And I think that really speaks to, it really highlights how so much of what constitutes having, generating more energy, that's the power is in our hands to do that. A lot of people, they say, oh, I don't have any energy. Well, there's so many things that you can do to generate more energy. And obviously, there's different levels to this. On a foundational level, there's the healthy habits. So if you're eating junk food all the time, for example, that's going to drain your energy. If you're oversleeping or undersleeping, that's going to drain your energy. If you're drinking too much caffeine, that's going to drain your energy. So there are all these basic healthy habits that are good to have in place first, to then move on to some of the other things that you can generate more energy. For me, diet is so important, because the more I've transitioned towards what works for me personally, which is more whole plant foods, the better I feel in the body, the more I tend towards fruits and whole grains and vegetables with not too many oil. It's very, very hard to get like a great exercise plan in place or feel energized every day when you're not nourishing your body with the right kinds of nutrition. So that's like one healthy habit, but there are obviously so many others that we know impact energy as well. Regular exercise, yoga, meditation. The no-fat movement is huge for guys at the moment, and obviously a lot of the information around this is kind of anecdotal at the moment, but there are a lot of people reporting the same effects of having a bit of abstinence from overindulging in that kind of stuff, and finding the result is having more energy in general. So there's all those kinds of things that you can do there. Also, meditation, because we often don't realize that so much of our energy is taken up by our thinking. And usually we look at thinking and we think, well, thinking is an amazing thing and we should be doing it all the time. We're intellectual people. We should be, of course, thinking. And if you're not thinking, then you're probably just being stupid. But actually, if you analyze your own thinking, much of it is negative and much of it is repetitive and much of it is based in the past. And there's a deeper kind of intelligence that comes through when you're more in the present moment. You can still use your mind, but you're not continuously stuck in this mental narrative that drains a lot of energy. And the mental narrative is usually saying more negative things. It's thinking about things that went wrong. It's thinking about people, what people did to me, what situation I'm in, and how terrible this is, and stuff like that. This part of our brain is in an evolution kind of scenario. It's been very helpful because it's protected us from so much danger, but because of that, it is often looking out for danger. And what we can do is move our attention away from it quite often into the present moment, and so therefore our thinking mind isn't taking up so much energy, and we reclaim a lot of that energy for our actual life and what's going on right here and right now and what we can do. So that's another thing. And of course, bringing more humor and joy to the situation. Eckhart Tolle said, laughter breaks through the ego. Just looking at your situation and learning to be able to laugh at it, even if it's on the surface quite dark, can often break a negative habit of feeling apathetic about it, and having some new energy to maybe tackle it in a different way, or at least accept it for what it is internally, and then from there finding things that you can do on an external level. And then one of the major things I think that contributes to having energy on a consistent basis is doing it for other people or doing it for a group of people or doing it to help bring positive energy to a certain situation, often we try and find motivation just to do things for us. And of course, we can get a lot of motivation and energy from there to think, oh, I want to improve something, or I want to build this business or do this art project. But expanding that outwards into how that's actually impacting other people and how it could possibly impact people in a positive way is something that's really going to energize you. For example, if you're building a YouTube channel, thinking about the people that you're actually helping and that you're actually giving value to, rather than just having your focus on the metrics and the subscribers all the time, which are of course important, but the most important thing is the people that you're communicating with. If it's building a business and you're launching some kind of project, who's going to receive that product and who's going to benefit from that product? What way is it going to help them in their life? You see very motivated people with extremely high amounts of energy when they're working for a cause that's outside themselves, when they're maybe doing some kind of activism they think will positively impact people and light up their life or lift them out of a bad situation, when they feel like they're working with someone and they're helping them in some kind of way. And it doesn't necessarily have to be massive. It could just be, for example, if you're working in an old people's home, you're starting to remember the people that you're actually helping. You know, a lot of those people, they might not see any friends throughout the whole day. They might not really communicate with people the whole day. But just a bit of communication and energy to them can completely change their world. Even if you're working in a shop on the counter, you know, there might be people that come and talk to you and you can just go through your day in your own head, not really talking to anybody. But there might be someone who comes up that you can have a conversation with, and they might be a lonely person who's not had any conversations with people for a whole week, and just having that interaction could change the course of their entire life. So that's a real source of energy, or a way to generate more energy, is taking what you're currently doing and looking at ways of expanding it outside yourself, how you could possibly bring it to impact other people, how it may already be impacting other people, but you just haven't thought about it as much, and you can refocus on that. Or basing your projects and ideas around things that are going to be positively impacting the world, because we're at a point in our civilization and society now where there are so many problems that we can bring positive energy to come together and create a situation where this civilization is actually sustainable. So exploring the world and seeing what's out there that you can either apply your skills to or learn new skills to then apply to those areas is another way of expanding what you're doing towards other people, and therefore gaining the ability to generate more energy to put into those kinds of activities.
Definitely. I love how you're you're very thorough with your answers, man, and I love that. And you actually talked about, or what I talked with greatness every day, is the difference between passion and purpose, and the difference between it. Like, purpose is rather for the people, and passion is for what you do, what you love doing. It's rather for yourself, right? And I totally agree with what you said there, that we should actually contribute to the society, what actually then be beneficial to the both of us. Because Tony Robbins also says this, that giving is actually a really great way of, a great contribution to happiness. And you talked about the narrative mind. How do you actually get control of it? Because sometimes the mind can be really powerful, and it is, and sometimes we get loose in our mind, in our head. So my question to you is, what exercises or what do you actually do to get control and be mindful?
Well, the first thing I would say is to probably rephrase that. It's not so much about getting control, because trying to control your mind or trying to suppress it is going to lead to more resistance and is going to lead to more mind activity. So, in one way, it does start with that acceptance. If you have a busy mind, it starts with acceptance that you do have a busy mind, that there is a lot of mental narrative going on. Trying to quash it is just going to lead to more thoughts about it, which is going to lead you rounding circles. Oh, I can't stop my mind, and then I'm still in my mind, and then, oh God, I've just thought about stopping my mind, and then I realize how that's more thoughts, and now I'm still speaking to myself, and you just go rounding circles because you're trying to use the mind to stop the mind, and that's never going to work. So first of all, it starts with the acceptance that it is there. And then really for me, it's just about it's more about moving your attention. But you've got to want to be able to do that. If you're looking at all the activity that's in your mind and you identify with it as you, and you think that it's useful, and you think that it's doing something, and often people do, like doing something in terms of adding to your sense of self, or say, for example, when you're complaining about something that's making you feel better in the short term, or when you're thinking about like thinking alongside a victim story, temporarily feeling better about yourself. If you're more interested in that, you're not going to want to move your attention to the present moment. But for some people, the suffering generated by their mind, and this is basically, you know, what happened to me in various different phases, becomes the suffering generated by that mental narrative becomes so, what's the word, it becomes so unacceptable in a way. I didn't want to use the word unacceptable because I'm talking about acceptance, but it gets to the point where you don't want to be in that world. You want to find a way to bring your attention away from it. And so you start to move your attention into the present moment, which is basically moving your attention onto sensory perceptions, for example. For me, if I realize I'm completely lost in a mental narrative and I realize that it's useless, it's moving my attention primarily back to my vision, or the sensations that are in my body, or what I can actually hear. You know, if your attention is more grounded in present moment awareness, and that is your sensory perceptions and what's actually happening in the here and now, you're taking energy away from that mental narrative. And for people with a very strong and active mental narrative, it can be helpful to have that as a practice, and that is essentially a mindful practice, remembering when you're completely lost in thoughts about the past and the future, and then gently, not from a place of real frustration, like, oh, this is happening again, I'm stuck in my mind, and, you know, just gently accepting that it's happening and moving your attention back towards the present moment. And then maybe you drift off again and you're moving your attention back towards the present moment. And there are many different activities in your life that you can start to really bring this into. And sometimes a good place to start is some of the more mundane activities, like cleaning the house or washing up or driving or something like that. Often those times we're doing those more mundane activities can be times where we've got a lot of time to just drift off into a mental world, which can often get negative. And those are times where it might not seem interesting. It might not seem as interesting as the story in the head, but there is so much life in the present moment, so much peace just to coming back to what you're doing now. If you're washing up, just feeling the sensations of the water on their hands, seeing the bubbles, you know, like just going right deep into that experience. which is where you are right now, as opposed to being lost in a narrative in your head. So it is that practice of moving your attention. And then through that practice, the neurological pathways that are responsible for that happen are going to get more deeply ingrained. So it's more likely to happen more often. Some people have completely instantaneous awakening experiences where their suffering gets in their created by their mind gets so insufferable that it kind of jolts them into the present moment and jolts them into realizing and feeling their own beingness, as opposed to being trapped in their head all the time. And it's really strong. It's like a sudden, strong, deep awakening experiences. And this is where we find a lot of our spiritual teachers, for example, someone like Sri Ramana Maharshi was said to have a sudden enlightenment or awakening experience, awakening out of the dream of thought and into just spending the majority of the conscious awareness in the present moment. This is where we get our teachers from a lot of these instantaneous, more instantaneous, deep experiences that often follow from deep suffering. But for some other people, like I say, it's going to be more of just a regular practice. And as the practice becomes more regular and more consistent, so the movement into the present moment and away from the mind stream happens slowly, but it's like an unraveling. You get there eventually. You realize how so many of the stories and narratives you create in your mind are negative, and you start to feel more at home in the present moment.
Man, I can listen to you for hours, man. It's a gift that you have there, man. But yeah, you said it yourself that if you have a busy mind, you should redirect that to like the sense of touch or hearing and stuff. I've never done it, but I definitely will if that ever happens again. And what personally has helped me is meditation, because I meditate in the morning for like 10 minutes or so. Now my question to you is, do you also meditate, and what kind of meditation do you do?
Yeah, well, just before I answer that question, obviously, just to clarify, I'm not demonizing the thinking mind. I'm not saying that any time you're thinking can be obviously very useful for a lot of things, like planning for the future. Sometimes I rehearse things in my mind. Like if I'm doing a video, I might be rehearsing some of what I'm saying in my mind. So that mental narrative can be useful a lot of the time, but it's bringing awareness to how repetitive it is, to how negative it is, and then those are the thoughts that you can choose to move your attention away from and practice that mindful awareness that we're talking to. So in essence, in meditation it's the same practice essentially, except for most people, meditation and perhaps is sitting with your eyes closed. There can be many different forms of meditation, but like the most common one may be sitting with your eyes closed and bringing your attention to the object of focus. So there's 3 types of meditations that I do, which is, and I tend to kind of alternate between them. One is objective meditation, one is subjective meditation, and the other is the do nothing meditation. Objective meditation is the one that I just talked about, really, is deciding on an object to focus and essentially training your brain, training your attention to gently continue coming back to that object of focus until the intention is able to rest there for a considerable amount of time without drifting into that mental narrative. So that's essentially what you're doing in an objective meditation. Say, for example, you've chosen the breath is a very common object of the meditation. For me, I like to use the breath. For some people, it's a candle flame or a mantra, or there's lots of different things that people can use to do this meditation with. For me and you, it's the breath, and it's essentially realizing when you've drifted off into the mind stream and gently, and with acceptance that it's happened, bringing your attention back to the object of focus. And then over time, it's kind of like a roller coaster. It tends to go up and down. You can get times when your mind's very, very busy, and then on one day perhaps, and then you meditate on another day and you find you're very quiet. We all go through that, even people that perhaps meditated for years. But in general, through regular practice, you're going to be training your attention to essentially the gaps between the mental narratives, and the gaps between the thoughts are going to get longer and longer. So you're training your ability to focus on one object and be in the present moment for longer periods of time. The second one I mentioned is subjective meditation, and it's something that I won't really be able to go into here because it's a deeper form of meditation. It's not focusing on the objects of experience, or just bringing attention to one object. It's actually turning the attention, almost like turning the attention round, or turning your own awareness round to the source of that awareness. But for most people getting into meditation, that may be quite a challenging thing to do, or to start to get into. But reading various teachers like Eckhart Tolle, and especially when it comes to the more subjective meditation side related to non-duality and these kinds of teachings, a teacher like Rupert Spira would be really good to listen to go further into like subjective meditation. And then the other one is the do nothing meditation. And if you search on YouTube, you can find a guy called Shinzen Young explaining this. And it's basically in the name. It's sitting there with your eyes closed and doing nothing. But there is, in this instance, a correct way to do nothing. And it's basically whenever you have an intention to control your attention, you drop that. So you're actually letting your attention wander. Whereas in an objective meditation, you would realize that your attention's wandering and then bring it back to the object of the attention. Do nothing meditation can still be very powerful. It allows a lot of letting go. It really taps into our ability to allow more of experience, let our attention wander where it's going to go. And even through that process, there can be a quietening of the mind aspect to it as well. So all three of these meditations are very powerful and have their own place. And personally, for me, I tend to, like I say, alternate between different ones. But some people might find one particular meditation that they like and they stick to that. Some people might find the do nothing meditation is a lot more of an easier meditation to get to in the beginning, because for someone who's just starting, it might be quite disheartening to do an objective meditation and then realize that they're doing 1, 2, 3 minute meditations, and they're spending so much time in their head and not on the object of the focus. And of course, really, you should just accept that, even if you've been thinking for the whole time, as long as you've tried to bring your attention back to that object of focus, you're doing well. But I recognize, and there's concessions to be made there, that it may be an easier way in, or a more enjoyable way in to do like the do nothing meditation, because there really isn't anything to do. You're just doing nothing. So there's nothing, it takes away a lot of the measuring aspect of it, and allows for a freer and perhaps deeper meditation for beginners.
Yeah, I personally do objective meditation, like you said, where you focus on your breath and being aware of that. And I've never done subjective or do nothing, even though the do nothing sounds very enticing by doing absolutely nothing. Okay, but
Shinzen Young on YouTube, Shinzen Young, do nothing. If you search that, There'll be the explanation there.
All of them, they have their own benefits, and I guess you do. Do you like vary between these three methods in a week? Like, let's say you do 2 days of objective meditation and then 2 days of objective, or do you do that when you feel like it, or how do you go about that?
Yeah, it's more of an allowing, to be honest. I may have times where for a whole few weeks I'm just doing one particular meditation. On another week, I might flicker between them. I'm not in this situation saying, I'm not saying what I do is the best way of doing it. People find out what works for them, and there's so many things that I can learn. Perhaps I should be more disciplined towards one type of meditation, or perhaps there is one type of meditation that is more applicable to me right now, where I am in my life and my practice, and I should be doing more of that. But at this stage, especially as I'm exploring with growing the YouTube channel and with teaching this kind of stuff and interacting with coaches and clients, I'm exploring lots of different ways of doing things to see what the different ways in which they work and the different kind of impact that they have. So yeah, I'm quite explorative at the moment.
No, that is good. I guess you're still kind of figuring out what works best for you, and that is something what we should all be doing, right? Doing something, experimenting, and then seeing if that actually works for you or not. Now, my question to you is, do you actually do visualization as well?
Yes. Because I'm at the stage in my life where I'm wanting to do lots of things. Obviously, visualization can be very beneficial for that. It's well known about in the personal development scene and in the entrepreneurship scene. So yeah, I do visualization usually before I'm starting a particular activity, and usually in the last few minutes before bed. So yeah.
And can you tell me or us how you actually go about it exactly? Do you close your eyes and then envision yourself how you're going to achieve this one particular thing, or how do you go about that?
So again, I tend to do a few different things. And so sometimes I will do the visualization on my, what you'd say, on my own. I'm not using any particular file or guided meditation, but a lot of the time I am perhaps using a guided meditation. There's a really good one by Mind Valley, the 6 phase meditation, which has a visualization part to it. There's a few good ones by Bob Proctor that are online. And sometimes I will just do it by myself without using any kinds of guidance. But essentially, it's relaxation first. So it can be progressively relaxing the body through body awareness. The most common type of body relaxation exercise may start with just loosening the tension in the scalp, and then the eyes, and then the cheeks, kind of going down the body into the whole body is in a deeper relaxed state. And then what really seems to catalyze visualizations is some kind of gratitude or loving kindness meditation before the visualization. So that could be thinking through things that you've enjoyed in the day, positive experiences. It could just be having a nice snack, and the taste pleasure of that, how you had a nice interaction with someone and you laughed with someone, people that you love in your life, people that you care about the most, that you have the deepest connection with there. That's bringing in gratitude and loving kindness into your experience before you start the visualization. And there are various reasons why it seems to catalyze the visualization, as well as just being a very beneficial and positive practice on its own. And then once you're into the visualization, a lot of people describe it as imagining that you have a 50-foot or 100-foot screen in front of you in your mind's eye. And a lot of people say, they might say, well, I'm no good at visualization. I just can't, I can't see things. And the thing is, everybody can. Everybody has the ability to use your imagination. That's all you have to do, is use your imagination. If you can't see anything, or you think you can't see anything, that's fine. Use whatever you have in order to make the experience of the outcome you want more clear in your mind's eye. So it may be, for example, you're working on a piece of writing and you might be imagining what it would look like to have that piece of writing done. So seeing on that 100-foot projector your computer with all the text filled in, or your notepad with all the text filled in, and then following on from that, how you might feel about that, feeling accomplished, and making the experience as rich and as dynamic and multifaceted as possible, just through using your imagination and extending and exploring. I'm imagining that I've done that piece of writing, so I can see it filled in, and then I can perhaps imagine someone I might call someone up and say, hey, I've done it, let's go out for a drink and celebrate. Or I might have some chocolate or something to celebrate, and what that would taste like, and the celebration, and making it multi-sensory, as in using all your 5 senses. So your touch and smell and vision and hearing, just making the experience as rich as possible. And then once you've finished that process, maybe done that for 3 to 5 minutes, it's really depending on what you're going to do next. Because for me, this is the thing, is that I'm going to actually make my own visualizations soon and put them out there for people to download, because there isn't many visualizations that focus on visualization before bed. A lot of the guided ones, at the end of the meditation, the guidance is bringing you out of it into a higher energized state. And obviously that's not what you want before bed. You want to go to sleep, So in the morning, that's very useful if you're visualizing your day ahead and everything you want to accomplish that day. Then at the end of the guided meditation, there's these instructions in a lot of them to maybe feel an energy inside of you, feel a power, and they're counting up and out of the meditation. And so that when you come out of it, this visualization, it's kind of like a meditation, but it's more, I call it more visualization. You're coming out of it and then feeling energized and being able to kind of tackle the day. So and you can do like mini visualizations throughout the day as well, to do between different activities, to do with some of the smaller activities that you're doing. So say, for example, if I'm working on a YouTube video and I'm sketching out some ideas, I might just lie on the sofa beforehand for 5 minutes and just imagining that outcome, imagining the sense of satisfaction from completing the YouTube video and having it all edited up, and feeling good that it's hopefully going to help people and deliver value to people. And through that imagining, visualizing experience, it often starts to generate ideas and generate energy, so that then I can feel more competent to start it, tackle it, finish it, get it done, and create something good.
I've never done visualization, but I see many people are doing it, also from the people that I have interviewed so far, and that is why I asked you, and you have given us and me great tips on how you actually do it. And what you actually said there before bed, you actually kind of warm up yourself to that state, like with gratitude and with the guided meditation, all of that. Now, what I will be implementing is just visualizing. I won't do like all of what you said with warming up, but just visualizing maybe my end goal in different aspect, different fields, like in health, wealth, love, and happiness. And that is something that I will be implementing. Is that actually enough for a beginner to do that?
Well, I really think it's just starting with some of the guided ones can be a good place to start, because if you're doing it off your own back and you're doing it on your own, that's a lot easier once you know the content of a few different guided visualizations, and then you can kind of almost tweak them for yourself, and do them when you feel that you don't need so much guidance. But a good place for beginners to start is the guided visualizations, because many of them will start off with the gratitude and the loving kindness kind of focus anyway. And yes, you're right, just having more of that stuff in your visualization anyway. I mean, I have mentioned it before, but I should have mentioned now, bringing into your visualizations the other people that are going to benefit from it as well. Say, for example, it's creating a YouTube video or a piece of writing, the people that may receive value from that, and the great comments that they might leave, or saying how much it's helped them and things like that. Or if you're creating, for example, a piece of music, and the joy that it might bring to people's lives in listening to that. So yeah, like there are so many different ways you can do it, and there is obviously going to be a lot of debate and thought around which is the best way to do it. But as I mentioned, the 6-phase guided meditation by Mind Valley, read by Vishen Lakhani, is I think one of the best, especially in the morning.
I will definitely check that out, because I want to implement that in my life as well, especially in the evening before I go to bed. So I will check that out, what you have recommended from Mind Valley. And yeah, let's talk about you for a second. How did you actually figure out what you wanted to do in life?
Well, I guess I didn't figure it out because there wasn't much process of trying to figure something out, as in like, what am I gonna do? I think I had that to do with other things in my early 20s, when I went to music college and completely messed up and didn't complete it properly, and then had to figure out what I was going to do and where my money was going to come from. And I became an electrician, which enabled me to have a stable income. But it wasn't until years later that I got to know what I wanted to do in terms of what I'm doing right now. Because I've done many things over my life anyway that I've really thoroughly enjoyed. You know, I've made music, I've DJ'd, I've played gigs, I've on more of a personal level, I haven't really put anything much out there, but you know, a bit of art and graphics, I've built websites and things like that. So a lot of it's come to me naturally through my desire to be creative. But in terms of like the channel and my coaching practice and all of the things I want to achieve in the personal development / spirituality kind of area, really those ideas really started to solidify a couple of years ago on the tail end of a breakup from a long relationship. So the relationship was almost a decade long. So obviously I'm human, and I suffered a lot at the end of that, suffered from that loss. But out of a lot of suffering comes a lot of new ideas, as you start to want to transcend that suffering and move into a different state of awareness. And how do you do that? Through acceptance of the situation. Some of the things we've talked about, through the loving kindness, through forgiveness, through meditation, through mindfulness, and all of these different teachings and skills that then bring us towards a more peaceful and joyful experience. I did a lot of that after a breakup. I had been practicing a lot of it already anyway, but I guess the suffering from the breakup like really catalyzed it. Catalyzed, right, okay, I'm not feeling good where I am right now, so you want to start to do something about it. And the thing is that during that time is that I did actually watch a lot of YouTube. I I wasn't as aware then how much great information there is on YouTube. How many people are talking about what you're talking about and what I'm talking about, and people talking about how to deal with breakups. There's great personal development and spiritual teachers on YouTube. There's just so much information, and I was getting so much value from that. And through that and some books and some of my own practices, I got to a point, maybe about 6 months after the breakup, where I just felt absolutely amazing. Like I just felt great in my body and great in my headspace. And I just remember one point I could just feel like I didn't even realize that you could feel this way without doing loads of drugs or drinking loads or something. I just felt like I had waves of euphoria, coming over my body. And it was at that point where I thought, well, if I'm feeling this and I'm not drugged up or on loads of alcohol, and this is just through having healthy habits and practices and certain types of philosophies and a certain state of awareness, then everybody can do that, and I want to share that with everybody. So that was the real point in time that started the idea around creating the YouTube channel and going into coaching and going into teaching. That was the time when those ideas really started to solidify and catalyzed my action on that.
Well, I'm really happy that you got through that, that relationship, and that made you who you are today. That kind of reminds me of what Tony Robbins says, like your worst day can kind of become your best day, and through that you now willing to share that value with others as well, with me, with your people, with it's really nice that you're doing this. And I hope that someday I will also get to experience that euphoria, that awesome feeling that you have without like doing anything, or well, not literally doing anything, but being aware and doing it properly. And I really think that if you really know these techniques of how you can get conscious and all of that, you can become really happy. But it takes practice, like with everything else. Now, before we get to the books, I want to know from you, how do you actually set goals?
Depends on the goal, really. So if it's smaller ones, I'll usually just write to-do lists, to be honest. I really love to-do lists. I just love writing down a load of things I want to do for the day or perhaps the week. And, they've done research on this. Apparently you get a little dopamine spike every time you cross something off. In terms of the bigger goals, I may use like a fork in the road visualization and some writing that perhaps goes along with that. So especially this is related to like bigger projects. So the fork in the road visualization and writing involves a few questions, and I didn't invent these, but I kind of tweaked them a little bit. The first question is, how will I and other people, sorry, let me say this again. That was the second question. The first question is, what will I and other people miss out on if I don't stick to this? And then writing maybe a few pages on that or a few paragraphs on that. Second question is, what will I and other people gain when I do stick to this? And then maybe writing a few paragraphs on that, maybe even a few pages. And those two questions are going to put a kind of mental path in front of you and start to tap into the deeper reasoning behind why you're doing a particular project, and start to tap into that why. Obviously, have Simon Sinek Start With Why, a very famous book and philosophy, but it starts to tap into that. Now, it's not trying to kind of motivate you entirely with fear. It's like, I don't think fear is a very, very good sustainable motivator anyway, but it is helpful to look at the things that you will miss out on if you don't stick to that particular project. You know, if I don't stick to building that particular business, for example, then I'll miss out on the opportunity to leave my 9-to-5 job. I'll miss out on the opportunity to earn much more than my salary. I'll miss out on the opportunity to create and discover and learn in that area. And then if I do it, the potential for wealth, the potential for new connections, the potential for delivering a service or product or some kind of value to other people and seeing how they're positively affected by that and the sense of satisfaction that comes from that. So yeah, asking those two questions and then writing the answers down and then building that into your visualization. And then there's a third bonus question, is how can I make it easy or more fun, or easy and more fun, hopefully. Because that really starts to drill into where you have leverage in the situation. You can dream up a big project, think about what you will gain if you do it and what you will miss out on if you don't. But it's also good to find out where your leverage is. There's this concept of 20% of the activities create 80% of the results. So what are the things that you can focus on that will really level up your progress in this area, and some of the things that you can take your focus off that maybe aren't contributing so much? How can you make it easier in terms of like the process? Say, for example, with me, it was to get my camera and move it closer to me. Get a microphone that was easier to plug in and set up. Get the settings all set up, and have a project where I can just drag and drop the files in, and the filters and the introduction is already done. Like having the equipment easily accessible. That was a way of making the activity in creating YouTube videos easier for me. So it's about thinking about what that is for you, and whatever you're doing it, whether it's a business, a project, or a piece of artwork, or it could be really applied to anything, even expanding your social circle and things like that. What are the things that are going to make it easier? Is it going to be easier if I can easily find social events on things like Meetup? Is it going to be easier if I do a few push-ups and warm myself up before I go out, so I feel more energized and alive in the interactions? All these kinds of things. So it's those three questions really, and then building that into your visualizations.
Nice. You kind of also touched upon like what would you do in dark times, like when you feel unmotivated, and you actually already said these two questions will help you because you're also taking others into that question, like what would they gain and what will they if you don't do the particular thing that you're meant to do, what will others miss out on? And it will kind of answer that question. What I wanted to ask is like, what would you do in dark times? And this is the why, like from Simon Sinek. Well, you're doing this so that you're contributing and you're helping others, which is like a bigger cause and will then actually keep you motivated. And the third question is kind of built around building habits, like to make it easier for you to do the things that you're supposed to do, like in your case with making videos for YouTube. Yeah, because we like it easier. And yeah, anything that builds the habit of doing stuff is actually really crucial and important, because I think one of the most important things that we can do and prioritize on is building habits, because we are what we do each and every single day. There was actually a quote, but I can't remember, I think from Aristotle. But yeah, he says something like, we are what we do each day, and we become that person as well. Anyway, now let's talk about books. So what is your favorite book concerning mindset?
So I guess it's not a book. I guess it's mindset is could be deemed as the wrong term, because it's not about getting lost in your mind, but it is to do with consciousness and awareness and some of the things we've already talked about. And maybe many people that listen to this have already read it, and if they haven't, they should do. And that's The Power of Now. Now, there are many, by Eckhart Tolle. Now, there are many books that are similar and or teaching, not so much similar, but are talking about the same kind of teaching. But I really like The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, because Eckhart Tolle, I can never remember how to pronounce it, because he puts it in very plain and simple and easy to understand language, and also gives a lot of practical things to do in there. There's a real depth to his teaching, and it's really simple and easy to understand. Now, there are some religious and spiritual kind of references in there, but you don't have to be religious or spiritual in any way, shape or form to listen to that book and get some value from it. If you're the kind of person who says, I'm an atheist, or I'm not spiritual or religious in any way, shape or form, that's fine. You can read the book and just see it from a psychological perspective, as looking at human psychology. It's a seminal book on teaching people how to live more fully in the present moment, which is something we've obviously talked about, and the reasons why that brings so much more peace and happiness and joy and flow into your life.
Yeah, I actually read that book, The Power of Now, and I can also say I recommend that book as well. And it's very easy to read. And yeah, so let's talk about productivity. What book would you recommend for that?
Brendan Burchard's High Performance Habits. Yeah. It's
We have that right here, but I haven't read it. It's like, it's laying on my table.
There you go. He's got it right there. He's got it right there. So it hasn't been touched. It's fresh. That's fine. That's good. You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it.
Yeah, on my to-do read to-do list. Oh yeah. Anyway,
I didn't read it anyway. I like most books, I listened to the audio version.
oh yeah.
He reads the audio version really well as well. He's very natural and gifted at reading, with some kind of with a natural edge and a lot of enthusiasm. So it's very entertaining to listen to on audiobooks as well, and breaks down some of the some real essential components when it comes to energy and motivation. He breaks them down into very simple and easy to understand concepts with a few stories and quotes from great people chucked in there. Great book for anybody hoping to become more productive, become a high performer, as the book says, building businesses, projects, anything like that.
Nice. I'm definitely looking forward to reading that book. Last question. Oh wait, not last question, but last question concerning books. What book has actually helped you the most in regards achieving your goals?
Well, like High Performance Habits is a big one. I think it's a real up to date and well researched book on that can help people gain more of that success mindset or whatever it is. But then there are the classics as well. I do think and Grow Rich is a great book. Obviously, it's very well known about.
Yeah.
But I think everybody should read it, whether they agree with it or not, and the perspective it takes. It's undeniable that it's helped so many people when it comes to creating a life where they're taking a lot of action towards a particular goal and often becoming successful with it. So High Performance Habits and Think and Grow Rich would be the two if I could only pick two books. Those are the two. Those are the two that I would pick. In terms of the doing, so it's like the Power of Now is the one for the beingness, and the Think and Grow Rich and High Performance Habits are for the doing aspect.
Yeah.
No, definitely. I've also read.
Bring them together.
Yeah. No, we have to look at all different aspects of life, not just doing, but also like, working inside of you before we can actually do something outside, if you can say that way. Yeah. My analogy is sometimes off, but you guys get the point.
I get exactly what you're saying. That's exactly what I'm all about, That's exactly what I'm trying to bring to this kind of area, is really fusing the personal development aspects, which are often a lot to do with the doing and all the things that we can do in life. I'm a person who loves taking action. I don't want to become a yogi and live in a cave right now, for the rest of my life. I want to be interacting with the world. I want to be putting lots of information. Well, maybe, I don't know. Like I wouldn't put anything past myself. It might happen, but at the moment I'm cool with where I am. But then there's the other side of it, the accepting yourself, present moment awareness, becoming aware of your own awareness, how you relate to your own consciousness and your sense of who you are, which is so foundational and really should be the primary thing. That's related to what I call the more being side. So you've got the being and the doing, and what I'm doing is trying to bring them together, because I believe that's a recipe for a happy and peaceful life that also includes a lot of interacting with the world and bringing light and positivity to the world, and starting projects and relationships and businesses or hobbies or activities that are fruitful. So yeah.
That's beautiful said, man. I really enjoyed this interview with all of the values that you've given. But before you go, give us, or me, no, actually my people, how they can connect with you further.
So you can go to insighteocean.com, insighteocean.com, and you can use the contact form there. But you can also go to Instagram, Alex_Shayla, and no one can ever seem to spell the word Shayla. Some people get it right, but it's very, very rare. So it's Shailer, Alex underscore Shayla at Instagram, or just go to my YouTube channel, which will lead you from there to my website and Instagram, Conscious Personal Growth.
Now, the last question, and then you're off to go to anywhere you want. As you know, my YouTube channel is all about mastering your mind to gain self-confidence and self-esteem. Now, what is that one activity and one revelation that gave you the insight of your mind? What is that advice that you would like to give to my people and to me as well?
It's boiling it down to one thing, isn't it?
You can say other things as well. It doesn't have to be that one thing.
Well, one of the best places to start, I think, for anybody that's not yet explored perhaps some of the books we've talked about and teachings that we've talked about, is radical acceptance. And if you go to my YouTube channel, I've got a video called How Radical Acceptance Changes Everything. And it's about what we've already touched on, but bringing more acceptance into your life for your life situation, who you are as a personality and as a human, and your current behaviors and skills. And it's such a foundational concept to reduce chronic stress and live a life of more peace, happiness, flow, and confidence.
Nice. Well, I totally agree with you on that we should accept ourselves. That is also one of the things that I struggled with in the past. I couldn't accept myself. And well, if you can't accept yourself, you can't have self-confidence, you can't do anything. So that is really crucial to really be happy, be satisfied with yourself. And
it becomes like a paradox for a lot of people. I think it's like, how can I accept myself whilst knowing that there's all these things I can do and improve on? So that can be a bit confusing for someone. I can't accept where I am right now because I'm in a crappy job. I'm not in a relationship at the moment. But there's a difference. What the important distinction is there's a difference between the internal acceptance and the external acceptance. So the internal acceptance is accepting where you are in your life situation on an internal level. That doesn't mean that you necessarily have to accept things on an external level. On an external level, in terms of like your life situation, where you are with it, with your businesses and projects and relationships, you can want to change those things. Absolutely. But through first internally accepting it, then you're going to be able to progress into actually enjoying the things that will lead you to where you want to be. If your focus is always on that outcome, and you're not going to be happy until you get to the outcome, until you become this person that's new and improved, you're always postponing your happiness into the future. And of course, there's always more that you can learn, more that you can do, more ways in which you can grow. And so you could be postponing your happiness off into the future forever. If you internally accept where you are now, whilst knowing there's more things you can do, then you can become more at peace and more happy with who you are now, at the same time as enjoying doing the things that are going to lead you to a particular outcome, and then get to enjoy the outcome as well.
wow, yeah, that is beautifully said. Because nobody is perfect, and a lot of people are, like you said, they might be they might not be in the situation where they want to be, having a crappy job, or with the relationship is not working well. So like you said, how can they accept themselves if everything is, well, bad? But like you said, if you know that you can improve on the situation, you can improve yourself to become a better person, that is a fundamental. It is really necessary to improve yourself afterwards.
Well, it's all based on measurement anyway. I mean, what are you measuring it against? If you say, like, I've got a bad job, I'm in a crappy job, or I'm not in a relationship, so that's bad, or I've got this many friends and that's not a lot and that's bad. Like, you're having to measure against someone else. And so it just depends on what you're measuring it against. If you're measuring what your job is like and what your relationships and friendship circles like and your skill level, what all that's like, if you're measuring it against people that are better than you, you're going to feel inadequate. And it can be helpful sometimes to get some perspective and realize the people that are even more disadvantaged. There are people in parts of the world where in extreme poverty, people that don't have any jobs and are starving, so it can be helpful to have that perspective. But at the same time, it's still based on that measurement, and recognizing that is a way to catalyze that acceptance. Taking your attention away from the incessant measuring. There's everybody is in a different stage in life. Everybody has different skills and knowledge and ability levels based on where they were born in the world, their conditioning. The outcome isn't the most important thing. It's how you're using your experience to become more aware and more conscious in yourself, and through that you can learn to enjoy the journey. And that's what it's all about, because we want to enjoy and become peaceful and happy now, not in 50, 20 years when you've done this huge personal development journey. Yes, do the huge personal development journey. It's a lot of fun. I can tell you, I love it. Like, I'll make loads of videos on how to do particular things, but like we said at the beginning, it starts from that foundation of acceptance and living present to the moment.
Well, wow, man. I should record all of this, put it in Audible, and listen to this while I'm like about to go to sleep, because you're amazing, man. You're an amazing talker, and I really love every tip that you've given so far. And what you just said there at the end is probably my favorite tip, like being in love with the process rather than the goal, and not really comparing yourself to others too much. It depends on what you actually comparing yourself with, but like you said, everyone is born differently. We have different family, we have different upbringings, all of that, and so we just gotta focus on becoming maybe the best version of ourselves, of us, and being in love with the process. I'm repeating myself, but what is being repeated is probably the most important things.
Repetition is the mother of skill.
So anyway, guys, I hope you really enjoyed this. For those of you who are listening and watching this, tell me, what was your favorite tip? Leave it down in the comment section, and do follow Alex here. I will also link it in the description. And remember, guys, that you are freaking awesome, and that you can do it if you put your mind to it. Winnie out for now.